Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Family Sanctuary, a show that inspires living the gospel message in word and deed within our families. And now, Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn.
Welcome to the Family Sanctuary, focusing on life-giving relationships and the family. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, chairman of Heartbeat International, that advances life-affirming pregnancy help around the world. And we have a subject for you today, a wonderful program that I think will open your eyes to a lot of important insights about adoption. And our focus today is on infant adoption, which is not real common anymore. Used to be that a lot of infants were adopted at birth. We had many adoption agencies, a lot of Catholic adoption agencies in this country. But today, only about 2% of single moms who are pregnant actually choose an adoption plan. It's pretty rare. And yet it is a beautiful option, and an option that I think a lot of people misunderstand. Just from my own perspective, my husband and I are the parents of two adopted children who were adopted as infants. We had infant adoptions. Our son was born in 1976, our daughter in 79. So that they're in their 40s, early 40s right now. That was a while ago. And adoptions have been declining, infant adoptions, that is. So it's a beautiful option, and people need to know more about it, I truly believe. And I think our guest, Lisa Kraft, would say the same thing. She's shaking her head as I'm telling my story. Welcome to the program, Lisa.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Well, thank you for being here and telling your story. Lisa and her husband, Aaron, are adoptive parents of a beautiful little boy, Nathan, age 7, and you adopted him as an infant.
We did. He was 3 days old when we took guardianship.
Wow. Our son, Tim, was 3 days old when we also picked him up at the hospital, and our daughter, Katie, was 8 days old.
Wow.
So it is a beautiful, beautiful option. And it's a beautiful option not just for birth parents. And I see the smile on your face. Even thinking about the story is so beautiful. It's a beautiful option for adoptive parents, but it's also a beautiful option for the birth parents and for the child, sometimes called the 3 members of the adoption triad. We're going to be talking about that today. But there's also a lot of misunderstanding about infant adoption, and particularly, I think, about birth parents, and as well about the child. People wondering, will this child ever really be happy or settled away from his or her birth parents? How could that be? It's such a primal bond, that bond between mother and child. Or they may be thinking, which often people said to my husband and me when we adopted, we'd be in a group and they'd meet our little baby and they would say, "Oh, what a wonderful thing you adopted him, but how could his mother ever give him away?" And that is unfortunately a perspective that many people have. It's a great option for birth parents, but not, or for adoptive parents, I should say, but not necessarily for birth parents. How can they ever adjust to that? So, Lisa, I know you have a beautiful story, you and Aaron and Nathan, and you can address some of these issues that I've brought up with infant adoption. So tell us a little bit, particularly about this birth mother issue, because it's seems to be a stumbling block for a lot of people with infant adoption, wondering about the choice of the birth mother. How could she ever give her child away? She must be a bad mother. That's what some people think. So what do you think about that?
I think the exact opposite of being a bad mother. I mean, what a heroic and courageous decision she made by putting her child above her own needs to be a mom. She could have made an easy choice and had an abortion. Those are, they're not hard to get anymore. Mm-hmm. But she chose life, knowing that, she wasn't going to be raising this child. I mean, how many people would do that? That is a heroic choice. And I can't express enough the love and appreciation and respect we have for their decision to allow us to parent their son.
Mm-hmm. So in the case of your birth mother, and her name is Amy, is that
Amy,
correct?
Yes.
And you have an open adoption now.
We do.
Yes. So you know about her story.
I do.
So tell us how that was a heroic choice for her.
Well, let me give you a little background on how we ended up, on kind of how the adoption happened. We received a call. I was at work, and it was the adoption agency saying that a baby boy had just been born, and he was premature, and the the birth parents were just getting ready to start their adoption plan and wanted to know if we were available for a call. So, of course, we said yes. And during the course of the call, they asked us just a lot of questions about our family values, what was important to us, and as far as education and our family structure and cousins and just, our faith, just how would this child fit into our mix. And at the, you could really tell it was important for them to make sure we were a good fit for their child.
And they probably had a profile ahead of time.
Yes.
So you had made a profile with a lot of detail. That's the way adoptions are done today.
With a video, as well as a detailed adoption profile with pictures and, our likes and dislikes and kind of our value structure.
So birth parents today have that opportunity to look through, I don't know how many files of adoptive parents that they can kind of match with their own values and so forth. So they had already done that, and they had chosen you and asked for a phone conversation. That was the process. Mm-hmm. So then they were just double checking a lot of what they had seen and listening to your voice, I'm sure. Yeah. Thinking, wondering, of course, what you sounded like. And obviously they were pleased because then they did choose you as the adoptive family.
They did. Nathan was born in Florida, so we hopped on an airplane the next day. It was kind of like that Jamie Lee Curtis book, Tell Me Again About the Day I Was Born. And from the moment we walked into the hospital room, Amy was holding Nathan at the time. She just handed him right over and said, "Here, come and meet your son." And it was unbelievable, the love and the unselfishness that she had in letting us bond with Nathan, right away. She told me during, the next 2 days that we spent together that she was raised by a single mom, and it was hard. She said she did not want the same for her child. While she and Andy, the birth father, were together, there were no guarantees. They weren't married. And she wanted to know that her son was going to have an upbringing that she didn't have. That
has to be such a loving and heroic choice. And it's so sad that so many people, I think, today still don't realize that. Somehow, birth mother, bad mother comes to mind. How could she ever give her child away? And yet, knowing the stories of some of these heroic birth moms, as I do through our work in pregnancy help, and your story, Amy's story being another example, it really is such an unselfish choice, such a beautiful choice. And so now you have an open adoption.
We do.
And you I think you said that, was it after the first year when you met with Amy again that you could see a peacefulness had come on her about the adoption? Yes.
Thanks for letting me talk about that. During the first year, we conference called with them at least once a month just to let them know that he was hitting milestones. Hey, he crawled today. He's on solid foods. Just to kind of let them know and reassure
everything
them
was
that
normal and
things were progressing as they should. And then as we went down to Florida on his first birthday, and they threw a little birthday party down there for him. And for example, he got a new toy, and he came over, and I was the first person he showed. And I was talking to Amy, a little bit later in our meeting, and she said, in our visit, I should say, and she said that was so reassuring to her that we had bonded. She could just, she could see, that was my child and I was his mom. And she said she just felt the weight of the world, because hearing it on the phone is one thing, but actually seeing it in practice, said it took all, she was so reassured that she had made the right decision for her son.
Sure, I know. And even with when our 2 children were adopted, adoption was a very closed process, and everyone had to sign statements that we didn't know each other and that we would not try to contact each other. And at that point, people really truly thought that was the best thing. That was the best thing for the adopted child, for the birth parents, and for the adoptive parents, that it would increase bonding and family cohesiveness and so forth. That has been rethought through the years, but even with closed adoptions, in many cases, agencies and attorneys who handled adoptions, and that was the case in our adoption, would allow letters to pass forth, or with the adoption agency or the attorney as a middle person, helping to assure the birth mother that the child was healthy, that everything was progressing normally, that the child was happy, and then helping adoptive parents like my husband and me know that the birth moms were peaceful with their decisions. So even when adoptions were closed, sometimes those avenues were available to make sure that everyone was peaceful about the decision, although that was not always the case. So now with open adoption, it really is a blessing, I believe. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the program, too, about how adoption affects all the members of the triad. But tell me about the challenges. We know that it's a wonderful alternative, and it blesses all the members of the triad. But what about the challenges? Let's talk about particularly the challenges from the perspective of the adoptive couple. The challenges of even being able to do an infant adoption in this day and age.
Once, in the case, everybody has their own adoption story. In the case of my husband and I, we tried to conceive naturally, went through down the road of the infertility journey, and decided pretty quickly on it wasn't for us. We didn't want to have a baby that way, and knew that we had a lot of love to give. So we decided the adoption route. And once you decide to adopt, there's so much paperwork to do, and it can get really overwhelming, and
so many avenues.
There's so many decisions.
Sure, even finding the agencies, choosing an agency, or a private adoption through a probate court. There's so many options. By the way, before you continue, and I want to continue with the story there with your challenges, but one of the things that is available to help people now, I'm so pleased here in the Diocese of Columbus, Elizabeth Ministries that you're involved in St. Paul's in Westerville, is a wonderful group, works one-on-one, woman to woman, family to family, to really help people who have infertility issues, questions about adoption. There are people in your group who have had infant adoption, foster child to adoption, international adoption, that can really help people through the maze. Was that available when you were going through this? Did Elizabeth Ministry help you sort through all these challenges?
The timing was really good. Elizabeth Ministry started at St. Paul's right when we had just finished our adoption paperwork. So
wow.
They were very, so I was able, there's a lot of emotional swings that can happen, once you are waiting to be matched, for a birth parent and the adoptive parents to connect. It can have a lot of emotional swings. You can feel like fertility is kind of all around you, and you can feel very alone. And then once you are matched, you kind of hold a little bit back because you're still nervous that it could disrupt. And the Elizabeth Ministry, that's where they were a wonderful resource. They could share their personal stories and similar experiences, and as well as support and encourage and just assist during this it's a special time, but it's also a very stressful time.
Absolutely. Well, if you just tuned in, our guest for our program is Lisa Kraft, and we're talking about infant adoption today. Lisa and her husband Aaron have the blessing of having been able to adopt their son Nathan. So we're talking about infant adoption and the challenges, the blessings, about birth mothers and birth families and all members of the triad. And Lisa is part of a wonderful ministry at St. Paul's in Westerville. If you're interested in that ministry, Elizabeth Ministry, that does work with women who have infertility issues, adoption, grieving loss, whether from miscarriage, abortion. It's just a wonderful group of women who are matched one-on-one with other women going through these kinds of issues related to our gift of fertility. So the number at St. Paul's is 614-882-2109, and ask for Elizabeth Ministries. If you're interested in infant adoption, or there are people in Elizabeth Ministries who also have gone through adoption from foster care and international adoption, infertility issues of all types. So I'm so thankful for that ministry. So getting back to Lisa and your story with infant adoption, we were talking about the challenges that you had to face, the emotional ups and downs. I suppose while you were even making the decision to adopt, and then after your application had been accepted, when you were waiting to be matched, those emotional ups and downs, the phenomenal amount of paperwork, decisions involved. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knew? I mean, there's private agencies, there's national adoption agencies, there's international adoption, there's foster care adoption, there's kinship adoption. Do you want an open adoption or a closed adoption, or they even have a semi-open adoption, where it's just kind of letters and pictures. Do you, is the medical history of the birth mother important? There's just so many questions to answer and think through that, if you were conceiving naturally, you wouldn't be thinking about any of those questions, obviously. So it's just, it can be overwhelming. And that's where, I don't know how many times I leaned on others who have been through the process to say, is this really, what's important in all of this? What should I be focusing on? What if I make the wrong decision here? And at the end of the day, there is no wrong decision, because you are opening your heart up to love another child. There's no wrong decision in whatever you put down on your profile.
Mm-hmm. And you then, I suppose, a tremendous amount of prayer involved in all that.
Yes. And to know that you have this group of women praying for you every day. And that was my first
the women
email.
At Elizabeth Ministry.
Yes. And that was when we got the call that we were going down to Florida, that was my first email, was to that group, saying, please pray. I was getting, daily, I was getting, hourly text messages from different members. We're praying, keep us posted. And then once we were home with Nathan, the celebration, I mean, here's this, God's plan for us to be a family was with this child. And, we had a wonderful celebration. They threw a surprise baby shower for us. So not only were they there through some of the harder times, but they're also there to celebrate.
That's beautiful. Well, one of the things when we're involved in adoption, and as I mentioned, my husband and I have 2 adopted children now who are married, and we have 5 grandchildren. We see the effects of adoption in succeeding generations, which is a beautiful thing to see. But we really believe strongly in the fact that adoption is a beautiful choice for all the members of what we call the adoption triad. It's kind of a little jargon term used in adoption. Explain that term, would you?
Sure.
The adoption triad and the members of this threesome, this triad, and tell us your story on the blessings for all members of that triad.
Sure. For those that don't know, the adoption triad is actually just a triangle symbol that demonstrates the relationship between the birth parents, the adoptive parents, and the child. The child being adopted is at the tip of the triangle, and they are the top priority in this relationship. So it's all about making sure they are the priority. And that's true in the case of our family and our adoption triad. The fact that Amy and Andy put their son up for adoption shows that they put the needs of their son above their own needs. we continue to do the same every day with giving him and receiving from him love. So our adoption triad is made even stronger by our open adoption. We have had birthdays with our son's family, birth family, and we visit at least once a year. We have regular communication and enjoy celebrating his milestones. We have others. Adoption isn't new to our families. We have others in our family that have adopted, and as they've grown, they've had questions about their birth family. And with the relationship that we have, if later in life Nathan has questions, he can ask those directly. We also have full medical history from our son's birth family. Mm-hmm. So if something comes up medically, I just call Amy or Andy and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. Was this on either of your sides of the family? And I'll be honest, the concept of open adoption was really hard for our families to understand. I think they were concerned that if Nathan had a relationship with his birth parents, he wouldn't want a relationship with Aaron and I, when in reality, the opposite is true. It just solidifies even stronger our faith and our confidence in our bond that we have with our son, to allow him to, not to allow, but for him to have a relationship. I mean, they were the foundation for his life. They chose to give birth, and we are going to foster that relationship as long as it works for him.
Mm-hmm. So it is kind of interesting, I think, in our day and age that children have a lot of family structures around them that are not what they were, the kind of typical family structure of the 1950s and the early 1960s, for instance. When my husband and I were growing up, I think we only knew one family that actually had divorce in their family. And in that case, there weren't actually even foster parents, or I should say, neither the husband or wife had remarried. So they weren't, there weren't stepchildren and so forth and so on. So today, however, there are so many family structures that are not as well defined. Children do have half brothers and sisters. They have foster parents sometimes. There are several sets of grandparents. It's interesting because I think as I look at that, it's amazing to me all of the different love relationships that children have. It's not disruptive in most cases for them to have those kinds of love relationships, as long as the core family relationships are strong, as in your case.
Exactly.
The core family relationships are strong, and so it doesn't threaten them to have other love relationships, apparently. In our case, the adoptions were closed, as I mentioned. So I haven't experienced an open adoption. But if from your story, it sounds like it's working out beautifully, and I know other adoptive families that have open adoptions where that's the case. Would you say that the open adoption, what do I want to say, the opportunities to have connection with the birth parents decrease through the years? Is that true? Do you see that in the beginning? I think you said you were calling them frequently, giving them the milestones. You had birthday parties. Do you see those connections decreasing in frequency?
I do. And I think that's kind of natural as the relationship, progresses. They had so much uncertainty and concern that they made the right decision, placing him in our care. And once those concerns were alleviated, they saw firsthand that he sees us as his parents. We are his parents, and that bond is there. And so they've gotten on with their own lives. Amy's got a very successful career in banking. Andy has his own business. I mean, there's a lot going on. So, I think that just naturally happens, but they, with the wonders of social media and Facebook, they see regular updates. I don't hide anything from them. They have full access to everything I post out to any other friend or family member. So they can watch him grow up from Facebook also.
Let's talk about, telling Andy, or Andy understanding, or I'm sorry, Nathan, your son Nathan, understanding the story of his adoption. Because he's obviously, as you say, the top of the triad. He's the most important. How have you helped him understand his story?
From the beginning, we spoke about it. Even when even when he was 6 months old, we were mentioning Amy and Andy to him, and that they loved him, and that's how we're his forever family. And I made a book that shows the four of us together with Nathan down in Florida with his birth grandparents. And then so his the love that he had down in Florida, and then when he came home in the showers and everybody meeting us at the airport, those pictures kind of combined to show this is my extended family. These are the people who
love
me.
Here's my story.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. I know when we adopted our children, the baby books of those days, there were a few companies that had baby books that actually had pages for my adoption story. So I think that's so important, and just answering the questions as they come along.
Exactly.
With Andy. He whatever questions he asks, you're very open and willing to share.
Right. I mean, it's not part of our daily discussion anymore, but if Nathan has a question, we just answer it directly and honestly.
Yeah. So you have a beautiful story of adoption, Lisa, you and Aaron, your husband, and your son, Nathan. And I love the love that you have for his birth mother, his birth parents, the beautiful choice that they made, the importance of all members of the triad being blessed in this adoption relationship. Thank you so much, Lisa, for telling your story.
No, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
And the number again for St. Paul's, if you're interested in Elizabeth Ministry and getting support in any of these related issues from Elizabeth Ministry, 614-882-2109. And you're all listening to the Family Sanctuary on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, and I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, with archives at stgabrielradio.com. The Family Sanctuary is broadcast at 4 o'clock every Saturday and 2 o'clock on Sundays. So please join us again to strengthen our families and make them sanctuaries of life as God intends.
Family Sanctuary is a production of listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, AM 820. Archives of Family Sanctuary with Peggy Hartshorn are available at stgabrielradio.com.